Happy New Year's, guys. We have a division rivalry game with playoff implications. On paper, probably like a pretty decent football game, like hard-nosed, low-scoring sort of division rivalry game. But for us, when it comes to fantasy and DFS, single game showdown, this might not be the most interesting matchup we've seen this year. But hey, there's some money to be won. Let's get into this breakdown here. What is up, guys? Welcome to the Edge DFS. My name is Tyson Smith, joined by Ellie Hernandez. Ellie, Happy New Year. How was your Christmas and New Year and all that stuff?
Pretty good, man. My sense of smell is starting to come back, sense of taste. So I made spaghetti for the family. So we're gonna celebrate New Year / Christmas today after the show.
Nice. There you go, man. Awesome. So thoughts on this matchup, just generally speaking. I mean, I don't want to BS too much here. I think on paper, this is a pretty straightforward game. I think there's a lot of value that we can discuss, and there's a lot of different build options that we can discuss. But what jumps out to you with this matchup? What are you thinking build-wise, and thoughts on roster construction and things like that?
Yeah, man, I think this is going to be an interesting one. This is the first slate that I think I'm really going to be touting even defenses and kickers, which means none of the four will be in the optimal lineup. But no, I think this is a great game for that kind of scoring output. This could easily be a 9-6 game. Baltimore needs to win to clinch the division. In Pittsburgh, they need to win so that they can stay closer to 500, right? They're trying to
7 and 8
keep that Tomlin record alive. So this is kind of important for them too.
Yeah, I mean, they could still make the playoffs. They probably need a lot of help. I'm not 100% sure about their 2-week sort of playoff implications here, but they have to win this game. If they don't win this game, Steelers, they're probably not going to be able to make the playoffs. They would need a lot of help from there. But these teams did play week 14. It was 16-14 was the total score there. That was a Baltimore Ravens win. So these guys, look, the Ravens have won 7 of 9. The Steelers have won 4 of 5. Their only loss has been to the Ravens in recent weeks. Two pretty good defenses. These teams are not allowing a lot of points. They're only giving up. Steelers defense has allowed under 18 points in 5 straight games. Ravens defense under 15 points in 6 out of the last 7 games. Anyways, my point here is this is probably going to be a low-scoring game. If you look at the total here, you look at all the numbers, 35.5 point total. Ownership is very even. Spread is very even. Baltimore is favored at home by 1.5. Obviously, no Lamar Jackson. If Lamar Jackson was playing, this would be a whole different show. But we got Tyler Huntley. That's just what we got. What jumps out to you here, man? I mean, the weather should be fine. There's not a whole lot really going on here besides the fact that, damn, this is a low total.
Yeah, man. I think, honestly, I think that total might be a little bit high. I don't know if you can give NFL teams anything under like 30, 35.5 points, but I don't know, bro. I really don't. I think it's very likely we don't see a touchdown in this game. So it's going to be a rough one. I think we're going to have to build pretty close to 100% perfect to be able to win tonight.
So there's not a lot of injuries to talk about. I think Calais Campbell's questionable at the time of recording this. Obviously, Lamar's out. There's big name sort of injuries here, but nothing that's really we expect to change or really change our strategy much. But obviously, we should keep an eye on things at 90 minutes before lock. We'll make sure that we'll check in on inactives. I'm not building any lineups until I at least see inactives. So not a whole lot of injuries to talk about. Let's get into our breakdown here. Break it down. All right, so Tyler Huntley is 9,400. Kenny Pickett, 9,200. Look, Tyler Huntley, he's not going to wow you with his numbers. He's not going to pass the ball a lot. Last week, threw the ball 17 times. By the way, 10 of those targets were to tight ends on this team. We'll get into that in a minute. But you don't expect a whole lot of him out of the pass game. He did have 1 passing touchdown. That was to Demarcus Robinson last week. 11 attempts for 26 yards. Seems like to me he's very touchdown dependent. You could get a rushing touchdown out of him. I feel like pairing him as sort of a secondary running back with Dobbins or Edwards or all three is a really good option. And I think we have the salary to just kind of do whatever the hell we want in this game. So thoughts on Huntley, and then we'll move over to Kenny Pickett.
Yeah, man, I like Huntley. I just I think right now we're seeing him as one of the chalkiest, if not the chalkiest player on the slate. And I don't know if he's quite that good to me. I think what last time they played, he had 6.5 points. I doubt that that's going to be the same output. That might have been his second start, or something along those lines.
Yeah, it
six
looks
and
like
a
it.
half, maybe a second or third start. So look, he's getting familiar with the offense. But look at these outputs on offense.
Yeah,
Like, you
bad.
won with 10 points. You won with 16. You lost with 3 points and 17 points. Like, you have 2 games above 13. At 9,400, we're going to need a 13 plus fantasy output. Otherwise, I just think let's put it this way. I think Pat Fryermuth or George Pickens has the potential to end up with 5 or 6 receptions that would outscore both Huntley and Pickett, for example. So I think there's other ways we need to go. I don't know if his ownership is quite justified.
Yeah, agreed. Kenny Pickett here. I mean, not terrible. You're seeing better numbers, generally speaking. But he's a rookie still, and he's going up against a tough defense. His max output this year was 19 fantasy points against New Orleans. He's priced down enough. I feel like you could get both of these quarterbacks if you wanted to pretty easily. The only question is, should you? To me, it feels like you could fade both of these guys in a game like this where the running attack is incredibly prevalent. There's going to be a lot of rushing attempts in this game. But the interesting thing to me is Kenny Pickett at 9,200 seems like a better passer. Obviously, I think if there is an opportunity for a guy to go off with the passing game, it's going to be Kenny Pickett. Tyler Huntley is pretty much rushing dependent. I think maybe he gets you 1 touchdown, maybe 2 passing, as a ceiling. But I don't know. What are your thoughts about maybe just kind of like fading? Could you do some lineups without either of these guys?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's kind of going to be the direction I'll be leaning towards a little bit more than I don't know, man. Like, because there's other guys that I just prefer to play, and I don't think the upside is necessarily there for both these quarterbacks, right? I mean, even if they are passing a lot, I mean, that's almost even more of a negative, right? They need touchdowns if they're going to be throwing the ball a lot. The scoring is built out 25 yards as a point, so it's not the same thing as like Huntley having, if he has 11 rushing attempts for 30 yards. I mean, again, that's, you still have to have that touchdown. You're not catching the ball, so you lose that PPR upside. And again, at their price, like, I feel like there's other guys we can get to. I will be under the field on both guys. I won't full fade, but I think I'll probably have closer to about 25 to 30% of each.
I like Huntley better in this matchup. I feel like he can get the rushing attempts. Maybe he gets 1 rushing touchdown and 50 rushing yards. That might be all you need from him. Let's talk about running backs here. Okay, this is going to be a rush heavy game. Baltimore, when they beat Pittsburgh in Week 14, that was with Lamar, by the way. They had 215 rush yards on 42 attempts. That's probably going to happen again. I don't see them coming out and throwing the ball 20 times in the first half or something crazy. Now, we've seen crazier shit, but to me, it just seems like a very obvious game script. It's basically line up, give me your best guys, we'll give you our best guys. You know what we're going to do. We're going to just attack you. So we're very interested in running backs in this game, especially from the Baltimore side. J.K. Dobbins is 10K, right? He's priced up. Gus Edwards, 5,400. Let me ask you this. Why such a big price difference between these guys? Because if you really look at, the output from last week at least, that was a terrible, absolutely boring game, by the way. But if you look at the output, where's my numbers here? I sent that to you earlier, actually. Let's see. The carries were very similar. So you had J.K. Dobbins, 42% of the snaps, 12 carries. He's over 10K here, or he's 10K. Gus Edwards last week, 40% of the snaps, 11 carries. He's basically half the price. Gus Edwards looked better to me in that game. He had some longer output, longer runs. So I don't quite understand the price difference here. Can you explain that to me? Like, is it making sense to you? Because it's not making sense to me.
Yeah, I don't know if the price difference needs to be that high. I think J.K. Dobbins is priced a little bit higher just because of his potential upside. There's been a couple runs this over the past several weeks since he's been back where he just wasn't able to finish. He pop off 60, 70 yards, but wasn't able to take it that last 10 or 15 just because of, his knee kind of being worked back to shape. But look, I think the important thing here is like you can get both these running backs at a discounted ownership. I mean, Gus Edwards is less than 15% owned. And you look at both their numbers last week. I mean, Gus Edwards, he almost had 10 full points last week without a touchdown. J.K. Dobbins was pretty close to the same, right? You add a touchdown to either one of those guys, and they're both in the optimal in their particular showdown matchup.
Yeah.
Even then, they still might be just where they're at. They're going to get 80 to 90 yards rushing potentially each, maybe combined, right?
Yeah.
But I think that they're going to be heavily involved. I'm going to have a lot of the handcuffed here, especially with Gus Edwards being so low owned, man. Like, just play him.
Gus Edwards at captain.
I think he's an interest.
Yes.
I was just about to say that. Man. Yeah, absolutely. Gus Edwards at captain gives you a lot of flexibility.
At that price tag, 5,400, we're already not really worried about price too much, but at 5,400, it allows you to do so much more at a very, very low ownership total. I honestly, Gus Edwards, to me, I feel like he absolutely could outscore J.K. Dobbins in this matchup. Just depends on kind of who's the hot hand almost. I do understand that. Look, last time these teams played, J.K. Dobbins had 21 fantasy points. He had 120 rush yards and a touchdown. So I get it, but I mean, who knows what's going to happen this time around? They're not going to just have the exact same game script. Maybe they'll change things up a little bit. Any interest in Justice Hill and Patrick Ricard here? Justice Hill's 2,400, Patrick Ricard's 200.
No, I don't think so. Unless you think one of these guys is going to get injured or be limited. I just don't have any interest in these other guys.
Yeah, we have some other value that we'll talk about here in a little bit on the Ravens that is going to be a lot better than these two dudes. Justice Hill's ceiling is probably a couple receptions, and maybe he falls into the end zone, but he's not going to be getting carries in the red zone. He's basically just a third down, third and long kind of guy. Maybe you get like a 10-yard draw out of him or something. There's not a whole lot of upside for him. If it's me, I'm going to have minimum of one of these guys. J.K. Dobbins, Edwards, probably a lot of both. And probably either one of these guys will be my highest owned captain. Most likely Gus Edwards, just because of that ownership difference. And I believe he still has a high upside. All right, let's go to Pittsburgh here. So Najee Harris at 10.6K. Jaylen Warren at 3,200. I'm not super excited about Najee Harris, but he's getting the most volume on this team. He's under 4 yards per carry this year. So that kind of worries me. And the Ravens defense holds running backs to under 3.8 yards per carry, which is tied for third. Sorry, my English is bad today. So this is just not a good matchup for Najee Harris. He has been getting involved a little bit more in the pass game. I think he had 5 targets in the last game. So at that price tag, man, that to me signifies, man, you could get ballsy and fade Najee Harris.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the way to look at it is if you can build with him in your lineup, then you can do whatever you want, right? So if you have enough to pay for him, he is the highest price stealer. So build a lineup with him, then rotate to Deontay Johnson, throw in Pat Freiermuth, Kenny Pickett, whatever. Yeah, there is a good chance that he has a consistent floor of 8 to 10 points, Najee Harris.
Yeah.
But this isn't the greatest matchup for him. I think they're going to have to find other ways to get going offensively. Now here's one thing to keep in mind. If Calais Campbell does sit, he is one of the best run-stopping defensive ends, defensive tackles in the league. So maybe that gives Najee Harris a slight boost, but nothing too significant. He's probably going to be the highest owned stealer. So just getting some easy leverage in an awful matchup is fine with me. I think you can kind of come under the field here. But that Jaylen Warren, again, if you don't think that this is a great matchup for Najee Harris, I think Jaylen Warren at 3,200 is a fine guy to take a stab on. He could get some run. Even 4.5 points at 3,200 might be enough to make the optimal in such a shitty contest like tonight. So if you don't like Najee Harris, I do think you need to get a little bit of exposure to Jaylen Warren, but nothing crazy.
So Najee Harris,
the other 3 I don't want.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always going to play a lineup with Derek Watt because I've been talking about him all year. But Najee Harris, to me, is very touchdown dependent. He has a pretty limited ceiling based on what we've seen. He's not very efficient. It's a bad matchup. if he does score a touchdown, I think you can account for him scoring a touchdown in your lineup in the flex. I'm not interested really in him at captain much because of that price tag and his low ceiling. Me personally, when I'm building, I'm going to be looking at maybe the 2 or 3 Steelers that I choose to play. I'm going to have to account for one of the, if Najee Harris plays, I'm playing him because he's got to score a touchdown. So maybe maybe you don't pair him up with Pickett. Or maybe I don't know. It's going to be very tough. We'll get to that when we're building. But the moral of the story here is Najee Harris to me is not really a captain option that I'm going to mess with, even though he'll probably be pretty popular in that captain spot. All right, let's move on to wide receivers. So Deontay Johnson is 8,600. Good price for him. George Pickens priced up now at 8,400. He had that game-winning touchdown, I believe it was last week. So these are the two guys that I'm interested in. Pickens is a great captain option because of that upside, because he has that incredible. He can pull off some of these OBJ type catches, and he can absolutely go off. Deontay Johnson is the safer guy. You probably have to expect a floor of like at least 10 points out of him, right? For Deontay Johnson.
Yeah, man. I mean, he's going to get a lot of work. I like Deontay Johnson as even as a captain play. I think him and George Pickens are pretty like one in one, like 1A, 1B. The thing that Deontay Johnson gets is a shitload of targets. He has the ability to go out and be an optimal captain without a touchdown, right? He could get 10 receptions for 98 yards, and that's 20 points. So that's something to keep in mind for a matchup like this. And then Pickens, right, with his touchdown upside again. Like I think it comes back to what you're saying. If you think Najee Harris is scoring the touchdown, then you need to have Najee Harris. If not, it's probably going to be one of these 2 wide receivers that has the touchdown. And if the Steelers offense doesn't score at all, then it gives the wide receivers even more of a boost because they're going to get the PPR points. So that's kind of where I'm at. I'll probably have Deontay Johnson or George Pickens in most of my lineups. And then we'll get to Pat in a second. But those are really the 3 guys I'll be targeting primarily from Pittsburgh. And then I think it's okay to sprinkle in a little bit of Steven Sims Jr. right at 1K. And then just like we talked about on the Pittsburgh slate earlier, this might be one where you stack Gunner in the defense again. I think you were having a little bit more fun with doing it the other side with the Ravens. But again, you could do it both. Stack both defenses and both punt returners.
Yeah.
2 kickers. There's a lineup.
And leave like 30,000 on the table or something. To me, this feels like, now this is a very, very poor man's example, but like Deontay Johnson, George Pickens kind of feels like in this particular situation, like a Mike Evans, Chris Godwin situation. Like Chris Godwin, clearly the safer, more targets. He probably has a higher floor, similar to Deontay Johnson. George Pickens has that Mike Evans touchdown, big play upside. All right, let's move on to the other side here. Look, this team does not utilize their wide receivers. Devin Duvernay's out. There's really not a whole lot going on here. Demarcus Robinson scored a touchdown last week at 6,800. Deshaun Jackson, 3,400. Old as hell, still fast, still can get involved, still can absolutely have a long touchdown. Sammy Watkins signed off the street last week. Actually had a 40-yard reception with him and Huntley. So I think you got to think about like trying to get these guys in, but they're not a priority to me. They're all going to be probably around 10% owned. Demarcus Robinson will be a little bit higher owned because he's the number 1 tight end technically, but to me, I feel like he's like the 3rd or 4th option on this team when it comes to passing the ball. This team does not like to pass the ball. Getting their wide receivers into the end zone has not been a thing this year, really. So I'm not super excited about these guys, but if I do want to play any of these guys, maybe I throw like a Deshaun Jackson captain, or maybe I do a Demarcus Robinson captain, but not a ton, man, not a ton. And then you got James Proche, which, you were talking about Gunner and the defense special teams. I'm thinking about James Proche and the defense special teams in a situation like this where we're going to play a lot of defense. Pair him with a guy that might get 20% of the snaps, but if he takes one to the house on a punt return, that's 12 points as a stack. That's a lot. That's a decent amount in a game like this. Andy Isabella at 200. He was elevated from the practice squad. He played last week. This is a pure dart throw. If you play Andy Isabella in this matchup, you might be one of like 10 other people in your entire contest to play him. But he's been getting involved in some fake jet sweep action. He's been put in motion quite a bit as a decoy. It seems to me like maybe they might involve him a little bit, considering he's one of the fastest guys on the field. I don't know. Thoughts? Just talk to me about your overall thoughts on these wide receivers. There's not a lot of exciting things to talk about here.
Yeah, I guess the easiest way to say it is don't play more than one. You don't even need to have a pass catcher outside of the tight end group from this team. I'm going to be prioritizing the running back handcuff, then probably Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely, right?
Yeah.
These guys won't make it into a lot of my lineups. But that being said, I think just to hedge a little bit, throwing Demarcus Robinson at captain would probably be fine. The other guys, I don't know if you need to do a captain lineup, but D-Rob does hurt us. It'll probably be a long-ass touchdown. That's his pedigree. That's who he is as a wide receiver. Outside of that, I'm not targeting any of this group. If you kind of land on a piece here and there, I think that's fine. If you have 3,400 left and want to play 2% own Deshaun Jackson, then that's a great play for GPP.
Yeah, like I said in the opening, last week, 17 pass attempts, 10 of those targets went to the tight ends. They clearly want to utilize their tight ends. You have Huntley, who's not the most accurate guy. He's gonna try to utilize the play action, throw it down the seam to Oliver, throw it deep to Mark Andrews, and especially in the red zone, you're going to get targets to these tight ends. All three of the tight ends that we'll talk about here. So the wide receivers, to me, I'm not super interested in. Let's go to Pittsburgh. Oh, we already talked about Pittsburgh. Let's go to Baltimore's tight ends, which we were just talking about. Mark Andrews is 8,800. Isaiah Likely, 1,600. Josh Oliver, 400. So look, I know that Isaiah Likely is sort of a trendy kind of guy that we like. I'm not going to just like completely ignore him because of last week. But if you look at last week's snap rates, you got Mark Andrews 80%, Josh Oliver 80%, Isaiah Likely 25%. Likely did have a target in the end zone that it was kind of a bad pass that he dropped. I think the next play or two ended up that Demarcus Robinson touchdown. So Isaiah Likely is a good option at 1,600. But to me, I'm really looking at Josh Oliver here, man. He had in that first quarter or first half, he had like a decent amount of targets down the field. I think he had like 3 opportunities, like 20 plus yards down the field. Fact check me on that, but I just rewatched that game from last week before we went on the air, and the one thing that stuck out to me is Josh Oliver was very involved. He was on the field 80% of the time. So for me, a guy that's $400 that's getting involved like that, I'm super interested in him. And obviously, look, Mark Andrews has been affected by not having Lamar Jackson this year. That's clear. I think everybody on this team has. Yet still they're winning. So to me, Mark Andrews at 8,800, captain option, flex option. He's one of these guys that is like an obvious play. He's going to be a part of my core. But I think you need to have one of these tight ends in your lineups. I really do think that if anybody's going to go off, if you want to pair him, pair one of these guys with Huntley, I think it's a good idea as well. So any interest in Oliver? And obviously, you're a huge Mark Andrews fan, just like me. He's having a down year, but he's still the same guy, right?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I love Mark Andrews. I think he's a great caption option as well. Again, I think everyone's going to be high on some of these obvious plays when Mark Andrews is still a guy who can go out and get 130 yards and 2 touchdowns any game. It doesn't matter who's throwing the ball to him. He's talented wide receiver or tight end. So love Mark Andrews. I think he's better play than all the wide receivers. And then I'm with you, man. I think you can play all 3 of these tight ends, right? This is going to be a run heavy game. When you have a backup quarterback in, especially on a team that loves to run the ball, we're gonna see a lot of RPO coming from Baltimore, right? They're gonna have all these tight ends on the field. They're gonna run play action off that and dump off to one of them. So they're gonna get a lot of work. And again, into your echo kind of your sentiment of Josh Oliver, like I played $400 dudes for less volume than that. So he's going to be on the field and get a target. I'm fine with him. I'll have a shitload of all 3.
If this is a normal slate, a $400 guy who's projected between 3 to 5 fantasy points, that is like a smash value play. That's a really good option. But because of this particular matchup and the pricing in this matchup, you just don't need a whole lot of these $400 guys or even the $1,600 guy. You might not even need them. So, which is why the ownership is going to be a lot lower, but it's still one of these big tournament plays, if you wanted to play Josh Oliver in the flex, man, I think that's a really good option. He's going to be my low-owned guy to score. Spoiler alert. All right, let's move to the other side, Pittsburgh. So Pat Freiermuth, he's basically the number 2 target when it comes to volume on this team. He's 7,200. Zach Gentry's 600. Connor Hayworth 800. I think Gentry, is a good option as well, but I like Oliver a little bit more. But Pat Freiermuth here is the guy that you want to, hit behind Deontay Johnson. I think Freiermuth is probably your safest pass catching bet. He 80% of the snaps last week, 35 routes run, compared to Deontay Johnson and George Pickens. They ran 38 routes. His target share last week was 22%. I mean, you got to play him. Play him at captain, play him in the flex. There is some opportunity where maybe he gets you like a disappointing 6 or 7 point output, but look at these numbers. I mean, in a game like this, you get 13 fantasy points out of the tight end. You're gonna have to have him in your lineup. So obviously play Freiermuth, right? We don't have to talk about too much about that.
Yeah, man, I like him at captain too. He's going to get a lot of volume. He's going to get a lot of targets. Those receptions add up, especially in PPR and those scoring games. So I love Pat. He's probably my second favorite Steeler.
All right, so let's go to kickers and defense. We absolutely have to talk about it in this game. Justin Tucker, 4,400. Excuse me. Chris Boswell, 4,200. Last week, Justin Tucker, they stalled out quite a bit, that Ravens offense, and it was a field goal game. I could see the same thing happening in this game. I could see the same thing happening with Pittsburgh. Both of these kickers should absolutely be in play. Justin Tucker, captain. I mean, screw it. This is a weird, funky game. You could probably sprinkle a couple lineups in there. They're dart throws, obviously, but you got to involve the kickers in this game, don't you think? I mean, I feel like you have to have, at minimum, one kicker / defense in this game.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And I think they're coming in a little bit low owned just because of the flexibility that we have at salary. But both these kickers are going to be under 20%. It seems kind of low on a slate with a shitty total and two shitty offenses. So I think both kickers are in play. I think Justin Tucker at captain is a very interesting option. I mean, they just played. He had 11 total fantasy points. So, but that might be necessary on a slate like tonight. And then defense, bro. These are 2 backup quarterbacks. Any one of these plays can result in a pick 6, a fumble recovery that flips field position. And again, a low total, both these defenses could default to 8 to 10 points just because they didn't allow a touchdown and had a couple sacks. They don't even need takeaways to pay off this kind of total.
Yeah, the Ravens defense going up against a rookie quarterback. Steelers defense going up against a guy like Huntley who's very run game dependent. It's not going to throw the ball a ton. I really think you got to try to, if they're not popping on the optimizer, which I'm sure they will, but if they're not, just boost the projections. Try to make sure you get with the field with these guys. I don't mind a Steelers captain because everybody's going to go with Ravens. If there are going to be any captain lineups, they're probably going to go Ravens, in my opinion. But maybe you go with the Steelers captain lineup in this particular matchup. I think it can go either way. They're priced up. We don't usually see 2 defenses priced in this 4,600 to 5K range. Usually almost never. So to me, that really signifies I got to try to make sure I get these guys in there. Are you going to have any rule set or anything like that?
No, I won't have rule set just because I'll be hand building most of it, but I'll probably end up with pretty heavy exposure to both these.
Let's get to our
defenses.
captain. Let's get to our crown their ass segment.
Now, if you want to crown them, then crown their ass.
Ellie, you're going Dobbins. I'm going Edwards. I really do think that Edwards is going to be lower owned. And just by watching that game last week, the eye test pointed to Edwards. Dobbins and his weird alien face-looking knee, he's clearly coming back from that knee injury. He's getting better and better every week. I do think he has a lot of upside, but at that price tag and that ownership, I feel like Edwards could score just as much. These 2 guys are going to be some, higher on my list when it comes to captains. Who else are you thinking captain-wise?
So we need to be very clear, right? We generally playing running back at captain is kind of a high opportunity cost position, right? Because you're missing out on the PPR side of things. So The GPP captains, Dobbins may be a little bit more cash, but again, he's splitting workload with Edwards. So again, these are primarily GPP captains. If you're looking for cash, you're probably going to want to go Tyler Huntley, even maybe Najee Harris or Deontay Johnson.
Yeah.
But I really like Pat Fryermuth, man. Pickens or Deontay Johnson. I think those are some 3 different ways you can kind of get some captain exposure. And I don't know. I don't know they're going to be all that heavily owned, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And then Justin Tucker.
I think the ownership is going to be pretty spread out when it comes to captain. Like, you're not going to see the 20+% owned guy, obviously. It could, because you have kickers, you have defense, you have 2 running back. There's a lot of guys that are going to be sort of spread out. So I feel like if you took a heavy approach on any of these guys and it pays off, you're going to be way above the field. Me personally, I'm going to kind of spread out along with the field because I just don't know where this is going to go. But I am pretty confident that Gus Edwards and Dobbins, at least one of those guys, is going to have a touchdown in this game. If not, then the Ravens are probably getting their ass kicked or losing like 9-3. It could be either way. All right, let's get to our fades.
We couldn't do diddly poo.
We're both fading the over game script. Obviously, we're not a sports betting show here, but the point is, if you're building lineups and you're building a game script that hits the under or at least around 35 fantasy or 35 points total points scored, I'm probably not building 4 wide receiver lineups with a quarterback, a captain type thing. We're sticking with defenses, kickers, running backs, maybe one of these high upside wide receivers or tight ends at the captain. But typically speaking, I'm probably going to have 2 or 3 running backs in almost every one of my lineups. And I'm kind of including Huntley in that as well because he's kind of a running back. And I hate to say that because obviously Lamar has been stuck with that title. But in this case, Huntley, he's not going to come out and throw the ball 30 times. It's just not going to happen. All right, let's get to our lineup build here. So we are very, very close to our 1,000 subscriber goal. We appreciate all you guys who have subscribed. If you're not a subscriber, we would appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button. Get us to 1,000. We're going to give away 2 $50 DK gift cards in our Discord. If you're not a part of the Discord, you can either scan this right below me, or you can pop down into the description, click that. It's free to join the Discord. We have alerts set up for all injuries and all that kind of stuff, especially if, stuff comes up at the end, as we're getting closer to lock. We're going to be adapting to any news that comes out, and you can hit us up in the Discord there, along with a lot of other great people who are chiming in with their pretty good opinions. All right, let's get to the build here. Let's click optimize. Huntley, captain, Chris Boswell, Ravens defense, Mark Andrews, Deontay Johnson, and Pickett. Where are the running backs? So this is one thing we really need to mention here. On both of these optimizers that we typically use, Ellie likes to use RG. I like to use Fantasy Cruncher with, Osimo's projections. We're not getting a lot of these Ravens running backs at all. If you just hit optimize, or if you just hit crunch and you crunch out 100 lineups, on RG, I got 0 of both of those guys. On the other site, I got 25% Edwards, 11% Dobbins. So to me, I don't think that is going to actually be what people end up doing, but it's something to take note of. If you're not hand building and you're crunching, you might need to boost these Ravens running backs a little bit. I'm not seeing a lot of them. If you didn't boost them on your end, you would have seen 0 of those guys, and that's kind of worrisome, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But I essentially just added 3 points, kind of split a touchdown between them. I think a touchdown will go somewhere between those 2 backs. So split the difference, I guess.
Exactly. But that's how close everything is. Like these median projections are so tight that if you add a point or 2 to some of these guys, it's really going to boost them. I don't suggest doing that just I like this guy, let me add 5 points to his projection. What my point is if you like these guys as much as we do, you're going to maybe have to kind of force them into more of your lineups for whatever reason. I don't know why they're not popping. All right, so let's talk about our cash game build here. So, I think you just got to go Huntley here, right?
Yeah.
Or Deontay Johnson, maybe, because of that PPR upside, I don't know. What do you think?
Look, so if I'm building cash, I'm probably not going to go with Huntley at captain. Like, I think just being generally accurate, Huntley is the way to go because he's going to be the chalkiest captain. But I think I prefer Deontay Johnson. And then throw in Huntley in the flex and Najee. I think you throw in Justin Tucker just right off the bat as well.
Yeah.
And then the Ravens defense.
Yeah, at minimum, at least one kicker and a defense. I feel like you can mix and match that, but that leaves us with 7,700 there, and you could throw a Freiermuth in. See, we're ending up with no Ravens running backs here, which is kind of interesting. I don't know that I love this. Is not really, to me. I don't really feel like this is a solid like cash build. Maybe a single entry. Not bad. Let me build one. Let me build one myself here. So J.K. Dobbins at captain, I think you could probably throw him in at captain. I feel like he's going to get a little bit more volume. Gus Edwards is a little just slightly more risky. I think you put both quarterbacks in a low total game. Guys touching the ball every single play. That's probably a good sign. Next, you got to go. I mean, I don't know that I absolutely love Najee Harris, but I think you want to put him in your cash build. You probably throw in Justin Tucker here, and then you're kind of punting in this last spot with a guy like, you can't quite get Likely. That sucks. So I don't know, man. Like maybe you don't get, maybe you pull one of these quarterbacks out. Maybe you pull Pickett out or Najee Harris out. Maybe instead of Pickett, can we go down a little bit to Deontay Johnson? Does that bias anything? It's still 2K. I don't know.
Get Likely. That's a fine GPP lineup, I think.
Yeah. So the issue we're having here is just I don't really know where to go with cash. If you guys have a good cash or single entry build, throw it up in the Discord or in the comments just as a study option to kind of feel out what other people are doing. Let's build our GPP lineups here. Who do you want to start with?
Let's leave Dobbins in at captain and then throw in Gus.
Yes, exactly.
Huntley? Let's skip out on Huntley here. Let's throw in Pickett and Deontay Johnson and see where we are.
Pickett, Deontay, 11.2K for 2 spots. So we could punt with one of these value guys and go high end, or you can go defense and kicker probably.
Let's go Ravens defense. And what does that leave us with? 68.
So DeMarcus Robinson, Ravens, Steelers defense and kickers. So you could do Boswell Ravens defense. You could double up on that, or you could do Steelers. You could basically rotate out these last two. I think it's nice. I think it's a nice lineup. Nothing wrong with it. To me, what I want to focus on is I think I'm going to be pretty structured with this one. I feel like you got to get 2 out of the 3 top Ravens players when it comes to running the ball. So you can get all 3 of them. It changes things up a little bit, but you probably for me, I'm throwing Gus Edwards or something at captain. I'm also popping in JK with him, or if I don't want JK, I can put Huntley in. But for this sake, let's go do JK. I want to get either a kicker or a defense from the Ravens, so we can do Tucker instead of the defense for this one, and then I want to get a tight end. I don't care which tight end it is. In this case, let's just go high and let's go Mark Andrews and see what that gets us. But from here, now we could do a little mini stack of Pickett, and that gets you anybody, man. That gets you Deontay. That gets you George Pickens. Leave some money on the table, go down to Pat Freiermuth. You could also say screw Pickett, and then you could pair him with Najee Harris as well. But to me, that kind of feels like where I'm going to lean towards. Like I'm going to have probably a minimum of 3 Ravens, maybe 4, and then sneak in some of these other high-end guys for the Steelers. But look how easy it is to build with Gus Edwards, man. Like, it's pretty easy. Yep. What was that lineup that I sent you earlier? Hang on, let me look. Did I send that to you? I had Gus Edwards, Huntley, Andrews, Tucker, Najee Harris, and Johnson. So anyways, my point here is by playing Gus Edwards, you really open up a lot here. Now, you could actually, instead of Tucker, let's see what we can do here. If we really wanted to get crazy, if we really thought the Ravens were going to go off, you could grab Pickett, let's just say Deontay, and then you got 5,100. You could just grab, you could grab the Steelers defense here too. That doesn't scare me at all. You just need one big play out of them. Anyways, so
pull out the Steelers defense on that one. Put in Ed Oliver or
okay,
Oliver Adams, Oliver Twist, whatever the fuck his name is.
Jamie Oliver. All right. So
and then what? I mean, there's no fucking reason to do that, I guess.
But that's the thing is Oliver. Why not? Let's pull out one of these Baltimore guys. Let's maybe pull out. I guess we pull out Huntley and replace him.
Yeah, put in Najee, I guess.
It's still 3,500 left on the table, and I don't think this is a bad lineup at all. That's why these punt guys just may not be very high owned at all today. All right, let's build with another captain here. We know that Gus Edwards is probably a good option. You're going to need probably 2 touchdowns out of him, or at least 100 yards in a touchdown. Who else do you want to try with?
Let's go Justin Tucker, and then just throw in both handcuffs, both running backs, and then defense.
Okay, so JK, Najee. What you want? Which defense you want?
Oh no. Gus Edwards, not Najee.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And then Ravens defense.
Gus, Ravens. We got plenty to spend here. We can't spend the money. So you want to go Kenny Pickett, or you want to go Najee Harris? Who do you want to go with?
So this is where I think you can be really weird. So put in Deontay Johnson and then put in the Steelers defense.
Okay.
This is probably dumb as hell, but I actually will run this lineup.
This is the kind of game where I think we're dealing with here. I don't think you need to really get too crazy. I'm not setting a ton of rules. I'm not going to set a minimum salary or anything like that. But to me, it feels like you don't need to punt at captain in this matchup if you don't want to. You're not even Justin Tucker. The only reason why you throw him in is a game like this, he could absolutely get you 15 fantasy points with a couple of 50-yarders, and he could legit be the highest scoring player on the entire slate. But I don't think you need to go down to any of these random punt plays. I don't think you need to go to Demarcus Robinson, a captain, too much, unless you have some weird thing that you like these guys. I just don't think you need to do it. So what else jumped out to you here building these lineups? It seemed pretty damn easy. It's almost too easy. It's almost so easy that I don't need, some people might not know what the hell to do, right?
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing you need to account for on this slate is you need to determine how many total touchdowns you think are going to happen, and then you need to assign those to each individual player while you're building your lineups.
Yes.
If Gus Edwards is getting a touchdown, that means who's not getting a touchdown. So you kind of got to toss out salaries based on that. If you think a dude is getting a touchdown, it could be the only touchdown of the game, he needs to be your captain. So those are the kind of things that you got to take into account on a slate tonight. Just build really strategically. This isn't just to let the optimizer spit shit out for you.
Yes, agreed. This has been, just building, just clicking crunch on 100 lineups with no settings or nothing. You would never want to obviously submit lineups like that, but it's easy to see where the field's going to be, and it's easy kind of to see what's going on, what you're going to have to adjust. And to me, I'm not liking at all what I see. It's just piling on all these weird game scripts that I don't really love. So to me, I might just hand build everything tonight. Maybe I might. That might be a little bit easier way for me to do things tonight. So what's your final score prediction, and who's your low-owned guy you think can score?
So I know I said 9-6 earlier in the show. I think the game's going to be 13-6. I think Gus Edwards gets that touchdown at less than 10% ownership. So he's my low-owned guy to score.
I'm going 20-13 Ravens. You were picking the Ravens too, right? Obviously.
Oh yeah.
All right, guys, we appreciate it. We got a good one tomorrow. Hang on. What is this one tomorrow? It is the Bills and the Bengals. Whoo, it's going to be raining. That's a 50-point total right now. I'm excited about that. So tune in for that tomorrow. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't, and we will see you guys for tomorrow's Monday Night Football.